Hi, I'm Elena. My daughter's teacher looked me straight in the eye during a parent-teacher conference and said, "I've reported you to Child Protective Services." I didn't scream. I didn't threaten. I just walked out with my head high, knowing I had nothing to hide. But when the investigator showed up at my door, I discovered something that made my blood run cold. The teacher who called was my ex-husband's new wife. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The morning started like any other Tuesday in our small Portland apartment. Rain tapped against the windows, creating that soothing white noise that made our cozy two-bedroom feel like a sanctuary. My daughter Lily was already at the kitchen table, her dark curls falling over her math homework as she concentrated, tongue slightly sticking out the way it always did when she was focused. "Don't forget we have your parent-teacher conference today," I reminded her as I placed a bowl of oatmeal topped with sliced strawberries in front of her. "Ms. Preston wants to talk about your science project." Lily looked up, her expression shifting slightly. "Do we have to go? Can't we just email her instead?" I paused, hand hovering over my coffee mug. This wasn't like Lily. She'd always loved school, especially science class. For the past 2 months, however, something had changed. Her enthusiasm had dimmed, her usual eagerness to share classroom stories had disappeared. And now this reluctance. "Is everything okay at school, sweetheart?" I asked, sliding into the chair across from her. She shrugged, stirring her oatmeal without taking a bite. "It's fine. Ms. Preston just..." She asks a lot of questions. Questions about what? About home, about you, about Dad. She looked up then, her green eyes, so much like her father's, filled with uncertainty. "She wanted to know if you get mad a lot." A chill ran through me, but I kept my expression neutral. "Teachers care about their students' home lives. It's part of their job," I said carefully, though something felt off. The truth was, things hadn't been easy since the divorce 2 years ago. My ex-husband Marcus had moved across town, remarried, quickly, and managed to paint himself as the wounded party despite being the one who'd walked out. I'd been left to rebuild from scratch, finding affordable housing, securing a job with flexible hours for Lily's sake, and trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy. I worked as a freelance graphic designer now, converting our second bedroom into a home office where I could be available when Lily came home from school. The pay was inconsistent, but it allowed me to be present. We weren't living in luxury, but we were making it work, weren't we? "Finish your breakfast, honey. We need to leave in 20 minutes, I said, pushing aside the unease that had settled in my stomach. The drive to Evergreen Elementary was quiet. Lily stared out the window at the rain-slicked streets, absently fiddling with the friendship bracelet on her wrist. I tried to engage her with questions about her day, but her responses were minimal. One-word answers where there used to be animated stories. The school parking lot was half empty. Parent-teacher conferences were scheduled throughout the day. We walked through the main entrance, the familiar smell of industrial cleaner and children's art supplies greeting us. The hallway walls were lined with student projects, dioramas of ecosystems, hand-drawn posters about the water cycle, papier-mâché planets hanging from the ceiling. Lily's classroom was at the end of the east hallway, room 108. The door was open, and inside, Ms. Preston sat at her desk reviewing notes. I'd only met her twice before, once at the beginning of the school year open house and again briefly during a school fundraiser. She was new to Evergreen, having transferred from another district just this year. "Ms. Preston," I said, knocking lightly on the doorframe. "We're here for our conference." She looked up, and something in her expression made me pause. There was a coldness there, an assessment that felt more like scrutiny than welcome. "Ms. Rodriguez, Lily," she nodded, gesturing to the 2 child-sized chairs placed in front of her desk. "Please sit down." As we settled into the 2 small chairs, I noticed how Ms. Preston's attention seemed fixed on me rather than Lily. She was younger than most of Lily's previous teachers, perhaps early 30s, with sleek blonde hair pulled back in a precise ponytail and wire-rimmed glasses that gave her a severe appearance. "How has Lily been doing in class?" I asked, trying to start on a positive note. Her last science quiz came back with an A, and she seemed really proud of that. Ms. Preston glanced down at her notes. Academically, Lily is performing adequately. Her science work is excellent, and her reading comprehension is above grade level. She paused, tapping her pen against the desk. However, I have some concerns about other aspects of her development. Lily shifted uncomfortably beside me. "What kind of concerns?" I asked, my hand instinctively moving to rest on Lily's shoulder. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. I've noticed some behavioral changes over the past few weeks. Withdrawal from peer interactions, reluctance to participate in group activities, increased anxiety around performance tasks. She listed these observations clinically, as if reading from a textbook. And there have been several instances where Lily has come to school appearing tired, unprepared. I felt my defenses rising. We've had a few late nights recently due to my work deadlines, but there's also the matter of Lily's lunch, Ms. Preston continued, cutting me off. Several days last week, she didn't have an adequate meal packed. And yesterday, she mentioned she hadn't had breakfast. My cheeks burned. Last week had been particularly tight financially. A client had delayed payment, and I'd had to stretch our groceries until my next check cleared. I'd given Lily money for school lunch on the days I couldn't pack one, but apparently that hadn't happened. "Lily," I turned to her, confused. "Why didn't you buy lunch with the money I gave you?" She looked down at her hands. "I gave it to Zoe because she forgot her lunch money and was crying." My heart squeezed. That was my girl, always thinking of others, even when it meant she went without. "That was very kind of you, Lily," Ms. Preston said, her tone softening. Momentarily before she turned back to me, the chill returning to her voice. "But it raises questions about the stability of Lily's home environment." "Excuse me." I straightened in the tiny chair, my spine rigid. 1 week of lunch issues doesn't indicate an unstable home. "It's not just the lunches, Ms. Rodriguez. Lily has mentioned feeling responsible for household chores that seem excessive for a 9-year-old. Cooking her own breakfast, doing laundry, sometimes being alone in the evenings." I inhaled sharply. "Lily helps with age-appropriate chores. Yes. She makes herself cereal sometimes and knows how to start the washing machine because I believe in teaching independence. And she's never alone in the evenings. I work from home specifically to be with her." Ms. Preston's expression remained impassive. "That's not what Lily has described to me." "I think there's been a misunderstanding," I said, fighting to keep my voice level. "Lily, honey, have you felt like you're doing too many chores at home?" Lily looked between us, her eyes wide and confused. "No, I just help sometimes, like Dad taught me." Something flickered across Ms. Preston's face at the mention of Lily's father, a micro-expression I couldn't quite identify. Annoyance? Recognition? "Speaking of Lily's father," Ms. Preston said, adjusting her glasses, "she mentions him frequently in class. She seems quite attached to the structure he provides during her visitation weekends." The implication hung in the air, unspoken but clear. Lily was better off with her father than with me. "We co-parent successfully," I said carefully. "Marcus and I have different parenting styles, but we both love Lily and provide safe, nurturing environments." Ms. Preston made a non-committal sound and jotted something in her notes. "Well, given the concerns I've observed, I felt it necessary to file a report with Child Protective Services." The words hit me like a physical blow. "You did what?" "It's standard procedure when there are indicators of potential neglect. CPS will conduct an assessment and determine if intervention is needed." My mind reeled. CPS? Neglect? The room seemed to tilt sideways. There has been absolutely no neglect in my home, I said, my voice low and intense. Lily is loved, cared for, and supported in every way I can manage as a single working mother. Mom? Lily's voice was small, frightened. What's happening? I turned to her, trying to soften my expression. Nothing to worry about, sweetheart. Just a misunderstanding we need to clear up. When I looked back at Ms. Preston, her expression had changed. There was something almost like satisfaction in her eyes. I've reported you to Child Protective Services, she repeated, more directly this time. They'll be contacting you within 48 hours to schedule a home visit. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the linoleum floor. Come on, Lily. We're leaving. Ms. Rodriguez, I strongly advise— No, I cut her off. You've made serious allegations without proper context or understanding of our situation. I have nothing to hide from CPS, but I won't sit here and be judged by someone who's spent a total of perhaps 3 hours with my daughter. I took Lily's hand, and we walked out of the classroom. My heart hammered in my chest, but I kept my posture straight, my pace measured. It was only when we reached the car that I allowed myself to grip the steering wheel, knuckles white, and take several deep breaths. Mom? Lily's voice broke through my spiraling thoughts. Are they going to take me away? No, absolutely not, I said firmly, turning to her. Nobody is taking you anywhere. Ms. Preston is concerned because she doesn't understand our situation. But once CPS sees how we live, how much I love you and take care of you, everything will be fine. But as I drove us home, doubt crept in. Our apartment was small and sometimes cluttered. My work schedule was erratic. We'd had that week of financial strain. Would a CPS investigator see a loving home or a struggling single mother barely keeping it together? When we got home, I tried to maintain normalcy. I helped Lily with her homework, made her favorite pasta for dinner, and read an extra chapter of her book at bedtime. Only after she fell asleep did I allow myself to break down, silently, sobbing at the kitchen table with a cup of tea gone cold beside me. The next morning, I called my friend Tara, who worked as a family lawyer. CPS doesn't just swoop in and take children because of a missed lunch or some chores, she reassured me. They're looking for patterns of serious neglect or abuse, neither of which applies to you. Be honest, keep your home reasonably tidy, and have some food in the fridge. You'll be fine. Her words helped, but the knot in my stomach remained. I spent the day deep cleaning the apartment, organizing Lily's room, and making sure our refrigerator and pantry were well stocked. I printed out Lily's school records, medical history, and even gathered photos of us together at various events and outings. Evidence of a happy, healthy childhood. The call came that afternoon. A woman named Ms. Winters from Child Protective Services would be visiting our home the next day at 4 p.m. I agreed, my voice steady despite my racing heart. That night, after Lily was asleep, I found myself thinking about Marcus. Should I tell him about the CPS investigation? He had a right to know, but I also knew how he might use this against me. Our divorce had been contentious, with subtle power plays and manipulations rather than outright battles. He'd always been skilled at making me question myself, at positioning himself as the reasonable one while I was cast as emotional, unstable. In the end, I decided not to tell him yet. Let the investigation run its course first. If there was nothing to find, and there wasn't, then alerting him would only create unnecessary drama. The next day crawled by. I worked on a design project, but my concentration was shattered. Every few minutes, I'd get up to adjust something in the apartment, second-guessing everything. Was Lily's medication for seasonal allergies properly stored? Were the smoke detector batteries fresh? Did the slight crack in the bathroom tile look like neglect? I picked Lily up from school early, avoiding any potential interaction with Ms. Preston. On the drive home, I tried to prepare Lily for the visit without alarming her. Someone from a family services office is coming to our house today, I explained. Her job is to make sure kids are happy and safe at home. She might ask you some questions about our life together. Because Ms. Preston thinks you're a bad mom? Lily asked, her perception cutting straight to the heart of the matter. Ms. Preston doesn't know us very well, I said carefully. She saw a few things she didn't understand and got worried. This lady is coming to see that there's nothing to worry about. Lily was quiet for a moment. Ms. Preston asks a lot about you, more than my other teachers ever did. What kind of questions? I asked, trying to keep my tone casual. Lily shrugged. If you get angry, if you have boyfriends over, if I ever feel scared at home. She looked out the window. She asks, about Dad too, but different. Like if I have fun at his house and if his wife is nice to me. His wife. Something clicked in my mind, a vague suspicion I couldn't quite form into a coherent thought. But before I could pursue it, we were home, and I needed to focus on the upcoming visit. At precisely 4 p.m., there was a knock at our door. Ms. Winters was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She introduced herself, explained the process, and began a thorough inspection of our apartment. She checked the kitchen for food, looked in Lily's room, examined our bathroom facilities, and asked to see where Lily did her homework. Throughout the inspection, she asked questions about our routine, about my work schedule, about how Lily spent her time after school. She spoke with Lily privately for about 15 minutes while I waited anxiously in the kitchen, trying not to imagine what was being said. Ms. Rodriguez, she said when they emerged from Lily's room, I'd like to ask about the report filed by Lily's teacher. Of course, I said, gesturing for her to sit at our small dining table. The report indicated concerns about nutritional neglect, inappropriate levels of responsibility placed on Lily, and periods of being left unsupervised. I took a deep breath. Last week was financially tight because a client payment was delayed. I gave Lily money for school lunch, which she chose to give to a friend in need. I wasn't aware of this until the conference. As for chores, Lily helps around the house in age-appropriate ways, making her bed, putting away her clothes, occasionally helping me cook. And she is never left unsupervised. I work from home specifically to be with her after school. Ms. Winters nodded, making notes. And the teacher mentioned concerns about Lily's father providing more structure and stability. Something in her tone made me pause. My ex-husband and I have different parenting approaches, but we both provide loving homes. He has Lily every other weekend and for dinner on Wednesdays. And your relationship with her teacher, Ms. Preston? Has there been any conflict there? I've only met her twice before yesterday's conference. She's new to the school this year. Ms. Winters looked up from her notes. Ms. Preston mentioned in her report that she had additional insights into the family dynamics. Do you know what she might have meant by that? That vague suspicion from earlier returned, stronger now. I'm not sure, I said slowly. But Lily mentioned that Ms. Preston asks a lot of questions about me and about her father, and about her father's wife. Ms. Winters's expression changed subtly. What's your ex-husband's name? Marcus Rodriguez. We divorced 2 years ago. She made another note, then set down her pen. Ms. Rodriguez, based on what I've observed today in my conversation with Lily, I don't see evidence of neglect or an unsafe environment. Your home is clean and well-maintained. There's adequate food, and Lily appears healthy and well-adjusted. Relief flooded through me. So the case will be closed. I'll be recommending that, yes. However, she hesitated. There's something else you should be aware of. The name of Lily's teacher, Catherine Preston. Does she sound familiar to you outside of the school context? I frowned. No, why would she? Because according to our records, your ex-husband Marcus Rodriguez is married to a Catherine Rodriguez, formerly Catherine Preston. They've been married for approximately 18 months. The room seemed to tilt. That's not possible. Marcus's new wife is named Kate. I've never met her, but... My voice trailed off as realization dawned. Kate, Catherine, Preston, Rodriguez. You're saying Lily's teacher is my ex-husband's new wife? The words felt strange, impossible. Ms. Winters nodded grimly. If your ex-husband is Marcus Rodriguez and he remarried a woman named Catherine, then yes, it appears that Lily's teacher is indeed your ex-husband's current wife. And she failed to disclose this conflict of interest when filing the CPS report. I sank back in my chair, stunned. But how? Why would the school allow this? Surely there are rules about teaching your stepchild. According to the report, Ms. Preston listed her legal name as Preston for employment purposes, not Rodriguez. And if your daughter's last name is Rodriguez like her father's, rather than your name, the connection might not have been immediately obvious to school administrators. Lily's last name was indeed Rodriguez. I had kept my maiden name after the divorce, but Lily had her father's surname. This changes the nature of the report significantly, Ms. Winters continued. A step-parent using their professional position to potentially influence a custody situation is something we take very seriously. My mind was racing. So all those questions she was asking Lily about me, about her father's home, could potentially be viewed as gathering information for personal reasons rather than professional concern, Ms. Winters finished. I'll need to investigate this further and speak with the school administration. After Ms. Winters left, promising to follow up within the week, I sat at the kitchen table in shock. Lily was in her room, working on a project, blissfully unaware of the bombshell that had just dropped. My ex-husband's new wife was Lily's teacher. She had been questioning my daughter for months about our home life, our routines, my parenting. And then she had called CPS on me, presenting herself as a concerned teacher rather than an interested party in any potential custody dispute. The pieces started falling into place. Marcus had mentioned enrolling Lily in a new school at the beginning of the year, one closer to his home, but still in our agreed-upon district. I had agreed, thinking the school had better science programs. Had he known his wife would be Lily's teacher? Had this been the plan all along? I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my text history with Marcus. There it was, from August. Kate thinks Evergreen Elementary would be great for Lily. Better science program, and she knows some of the staff there. She knows some of the staff. Of course she did. She was the staff. My hands were shaking as I set down the phone. I needed to think clearly. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about someone actively trying to undermine my relationship with my daughter, potentially to build a case for changing our custody arrangement. The realization hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't a concerned teacher looking out for a student. This was a calculated move in a game I hadn't even known I was playing. I glanced toward Lily's room, where I could hear her humming softly as she worked. My daughter, curious, compassionate, resilient, caught in the middle of adult manipulation she couldn't possibly understand. Anger rose in me, not the fleeting kind that burns hot and fast, but the slow, steady kind that hardens into resolve. This wasn't over, not by a long shot, but now at least I knew who I was really dealing with. That night, sleep evaded me. I sat at our kitchen table, a half-empty mug of chamomile tea growing cold beside my laptop as I scrolled through months of emails, text messages, and calendar entries, looking for clues I'd missed, connections I'd failed to make. The soft glow of the screen illuminated the quiet darkness of our apartment, shadows dancing across the walls with each new revelation. Catherine Preston, Kate Rodriguez. The woman my ex-husband had married just 6 months after our divorce was finalized. The woman who now spent 7 hours a day with my daughter, asking probing questions, gathering information, and watching. Always watching. I'd never met her. Marcus had been careful about that. Our custody exchanges happened at neutral locations, and he'd always come alone. Kate works weekends, he'd explained. Or Kate's visiting her mother. Never an opportunity for us to cross paths. Now I understood why. Lily shifted in her sleep down the hall, and I paused my research to listen, making sure she wasn't having a nightmare. The apartment returned to silence, but my thoughts continued their relentless pace. Why would Catherine take such a risk? Teaching your own stepdaughter while concealing your relationship wasn't just unethical. It could cost her her job, her teaching license. The CPS report made it even worse, using her professional position to potentially influence a custody situation crossed every possible line. Unless she thought she wouldn't get caught. Unless she believed I was exactly what she'd described in her report. Negligent, unstable, barely holding it together. The realization stung, but it also awakened something in me. A clarity and determination I hadn't felt since the early days after Marcus left, when I'd been forced to rebuild our lives from scratch. I closed my laptop and moved to the window, gazing out at the quiet street below. Portland at 3 a.m. was peaceful, the rain having subsided to a gentle mist that clung to the streetlights like halos. In that stillness, I made my decision. I wouldn't confront Marcus or Catherine directly, not yet. First, I needed to understand exactly what I was dealing with, to gather my own evidence methodically. They had been watching me for months. Now it was my turn to pay attention. Morning came too quickly. I moved through our routine on autopilot, packing Lily's lunch with extra care. A turkey sandwich with the crusts cut off, apple slices arranged. In a flower pattern, a small container of ranch dip for her carrot sticks, and a homemade oatmeal cookie. Nothing that could be criticized, nothing that could be used against me. "Mom, are you okay?" Lily asked as I handed her the lunchbox. "You look tired." I smiled, smoothing her hair. "Just stayed up late working on a project. I'm fine, sweetheart." "Is it because of that lady who came yesterday? Or because of Ms. Preston?" My heart clenched at how perceptive she was. "A little bit," I admitted. "But it's nothing for you to worry about. Adult stuff." Lily nodded solemnly. "Ms. Preston was weird yesterday. She didn't call on me in class, even when I had my hand up, and she kept looking at me funny." I knelt down to Lily's level, choosing my words carefully. "Honey, if Ms. Preston or anyone at school ever makes you feel uncomfortable, you can always tell me. You know that, right?" "I know." She adjusted her backpack straps. "Can we take the bus today? I don't want you to have to see Ms. Preston." My protective, thoughtful girl. Actually, I was thinking the same thing. Bus today, and I'll pick you up afterward at the main entrance. After dropping Lily at the bus stop, I drove straight to Evergreen Elementary, but not to the main building. Instead, I parked across the street, pulled out my laptop, and connected to the coffee shop's Wi-Fi. First step, research. Catherine Preston's digital footprint was minimal but revealing. A locked-down Facebook profile showed only her profile. Picture: a professional headshot where she looked polished and confident, blonde hair swept into an elegant updo, smile practiced and perfect. LinkedIn revealed she'd graduated from Portland State University 5 years ago with a degree in elementary education. She'd taught at 2 schools before Evergreen, each for about 2 years. More interesting was what I found when I searched for Catherine and Marcus together. A wedding announcement in the digital version of the local newspaper, dated just 6 months after our divorce. A charity gala photo where they posed with his law firm colleagues, her hand possessively on his arm. And most tellingly, a post on the neighborhood forum from 8 months ago. Recommendations for schools in the Cedar Mill area. My stepdaughter will be starting 4th grade, and we're looking at options. 8 months ago, well before the school year began. This hadn't been a coincidence. They had targeted Evergreen Elementary specifically. I closed my laptop just as the morning bell rang across the street. Teachers and late-arriving students hurried into the building. Among them was Catherine, her blonde hair now in a sleek ponytail, carrying a leather tote bag and travel mug. Even from a distance, her posture radiated confidence, shoulders back, chin lifted, stride purposeful. This was the woman who had been questioning my daughter for months, who had called CPS on me, who was married to my ex-husband. I watched her disappear into the building, a plan beginning to form in my mind. My first call was to the school district office. I identified myself as Lily Rodriguez's mother and asked to speak with someone about a potential conflict of interest situation. After being transferred twice, I reached Dr. Harmon, an assistant superintendent for elementary education. Ms. Rodriguez, can you explain the nature of your concern? She asked after I'd introduced myself. My daughter's teacher, Catherine Preston, is married to my ex-husband, Marcus Rodriguez. She's my daughter's stepmother, but she's using her maiden name professionally. Neither the school nor I were informed of this relationship when Lily was placed in her class. There was a long pause. That would indeed be a significant conflict of interest, Dr. Harmon said finally. Are you certain about this relationship? Absolutely certain. What's more concerning is that Ms. Preston recently filed a CPS report against me, presenting herself as a concerned teacher rather than an involved party in our family situation. I see. Her voice had cooled further. That's a very serious allegation, Ms. Rodriguez. Have you spoken with Principal Mendez about this? Not yet. I wanted to understand the district policy first. Our policy is clear. Teachers cannot teach immediate family members or step-family members without explicit disclosure and approval, which is rarely granted precisely because of situations like this. If what you're saying is accurate, this is a serious ethical breach. It is accurate, I assured her. And there's more. The CPS investigator who visited my home yesterday confirmed that Ms. Preston filed her report without disclosing her relationship to my daughter. Dr. Harmon's tone changed from skeptical to concerned. I'll need to look into this immediately. Can you come to the district office this afternoon? Say, 2 p.m.? I'd like to get your full statement. I agreed, feeling a small measure of vindication. The system wasn't working against me after all, at least not all of it. After hanging up, I drove to my friend Tara's law office. As a family lawyer, she'd helped many clients navigate custody issues, though she hadn't handled my divorce. Marcus had insisted on using his firm's attorneys, and in my shock and grief, I'd agreed to terms I might otherwise have questioned. Tara's receptionist showed me straight to her office, where she was reviewing documents at her desk. Elena, she said, looking up with concern. You look like you haven't slept. What's going on? I sank into the chair across from her desk. Remember that CPS visit I told you about? Turns out Lily's teacher who made the report is my ex-husband's new wife. Tara's eyebrows shot up. You're kidding. I wish I were. I explained everything. Catherine's hidden identity, the months of questioning Lily, the CPS report, and my morning's research. Tara leaned back in her chair, processing. Honestly, it's one of the most egregious ethical breaches I've seen in a school setting. And potentially a legal issue as well. That's why I'm here. I need to know my options. She tapped her pen against her legal pad. First, you've done the right thing by contacting the school district. Document everything. Dates, times, names of who you spoke with. Second, you should request copies of all communications between the teacher and the school about Lily. You have a right to those as her parent. And what about Marcus? Should I confront him? Tara shook her head. Not yet. Right now, you have the advantage of information. They don't know that you know. I'd wait until the district has conducted their investigation. What about the custody arrangement? Could they use this somehow to change it? Based on what you've told me, they might have been building toward that, gathering evidence of problems at your home to justify a modification request. Tara's expression was grim, but their methods have undermined any case they might try to make. Courts don't look kindly on deception, especially when it involves a child's education. So, what's my next step? I asked, feeling both exhausted and energized. Document everything. Get the district's investigation on record. And let's review your current custody agreement to make sure you're protected moving forward. We spent the next hour going through my custody documents, with Tara pointing out areas that could be strengthened. By the time I left her office, I had a clear action plan and something even more valuable, confirmation that I wasn't overreacting. This was serious, and I was right to fight it. At 2 p.m. sharp, I walked into the district office building, a modern 3-story structure of glass and concrete. Dr. Harmon met me in the lobby, a tall woman with silver-streaked hair and an air of competent authority. "Ms. Rodriguez, thank you for coming," she said, guiding me to a conference room where 2 other people waited. A man introduced as Mr. Patel from Human Resources, and a woman named Ms. Collins, the district's legal counsel. Their presence underscored the seriousness with which they were taking my complaint. For the next hour, I answered questions, provided documentation, and explained the timeline of events from Lily's enrollment at Evergreen to the CPS investigation. "We've already spoken with Principal Mendez," Dr. Harmon informed me. "He was unaware of Ms. Preston's relationship to your daughter. She listed her name as Catherine Preston on all employment documents and never disclosed the potential conflict." "What happens now?" I asked. Ms. Collins, the lawyer, responded. "We'll be conducting a full investigation. Ms. Preston will be placed on administrative leave effective tomorrow morning while we gather facts. We'll need to interview your daughter as well, with your permission and presence, of course." "And my ex-husband? Will you be speaking with him?" "Yes, we'll need his statement as well. All parties involved will be interviewed." I nodded, realizing that Marcus would soon know that I had discovered their secret. Part of me dreaded his reaction, but a stronger part felt relieved. No more shadows, no more hidden manipulations. "There's one more thing," I said, pulling out my phone. Lily recorded some of her interactions with Ms. Preston on her tablet. She showed me this morning before school. I played the audio file Lily had sent to my phone, Catherine's voice clear and unmistakable. "Lily, honey, don't you think it would be nice to live with your dad and me full-time? You'd have your own room with the bay window you like, and you wouldn't have to worry about money for lunch or new clothes." There was a pause, then Lily's voice. "I like living with my mom. We're fine." "But don't you get tired of that tiny apartment? Of your mom always working and being stressed about money? Your dad and I could give you so much more." The 3 district officials exchanged glances as the recording ended. "This is extremely concerning," Dr. Harmon said. "Ms. Preston isn't just teaching your daughter inappropriately. She's actively trying to influence her feelings about her living situation." Mr. Patel from HR nodded grimly. "This goes beyond a conflict of interest. This is potentially grooming behavior." The word grooming hit me like a physical blow. I'd been so focused on the custody implications that I hadn't fully processed how Catherine's actions were affecting Lily psychologically. "We'll need a copy of that recording," Ms. Collins said, "and any others your daughter may have. This changes the nature of our investigation significantly." I forwarded the file, feeling simultaneously vindicated and sick to my stomach. What else had Catherine said to Lily when I wasn't around? As the meeting concluded, Dr. Harmon walked me to the door. "Ms. Rodriguez, I want to personally apologize for what your family has experienced. This should never have happened in one of our schools." "Thank you," I said. "I just want to protect my daughter." "We share that goal," she assured me. "You'll be hearing from us very soon." Driving to pick up Lily from school, I felt lighter than I had in days. The district was taking action. The truth was coming to light. But I also knew that the most difficult conversation lay ahead. I needed to talk to Lily about what had been happening. I parked at the school just as the final bell rang. Students poured out of the building, chattering and laughing. backpacks, bouncing as they ran to waiting parents or buses. Lily emerged more slowly, her eyes searching the crowd until she spotted me. The smile that lit up her face was worth every battle I'd ever fought. "Mom!" she called, running over. "You came!" "Of course I did, sweetheart. I told you I would." I hugged her close, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo and school glue. "How was your day?" "Weird," she admitted as we walked to the car. "Miss Preston wasn't there after lunch. We had a substitute." So, the district had already acted. "Did the substitute say why?" Lily shook her head. "Just that Ms. Preston had to leave unexpectedly. Some kids thought she was sick." I helped Lily into the car, my mind racing. How much should I tell her? She deserved the truth, but I didn't want to burden her with adult complexities or turn her against her father. "Lily," I began once we were driving, "we need to talk about something important. It's about Ms. Preston." Lily looked at me, suddenly serious. "Is it because she's married to Dad?" I nearly swerved in surprise. "You knew?" She nodded slowly. "I found out last month. I saw a picture on her desk that she usually keeps in her drawer. It was her and Dad at a beach. I recognized his watch, the one Grandpa gave him. My brilliant, observant daughter. Why didn't you tell me?" Lily looked down at her hands. "Dad made me promise not to. He said it was a special surprise and that adults sometimes need to keep secrets." The implications of that statement sent a chill through me. "Lily, adults should never ask kids to keep secrets from their parents. That's not okay." "I know," she whispered. "That's why I started recording stuff. Ms. Winters, my counselor at school, talked to our class about safe and unsafe secrets. She said if a secret makes you feel bad inside, it's probably not a good secret." I reached over and squeezed her hand. "You did the right thing, Lily. I'm so proud of you for being brave and smart. Are you and Dad going to fight again?" Her voice was small, frightened. "I hope not," I said honestly. "But I need you to know something important. No matter what happens, you don't have to choose between us. You can love both your dad and me, even when we disagree." She nodded, looking out the window thoughtfully. "Ms. Preston said I'd be happier living with them full-time. But that's not true. I like our apartment. I like how you help me with science projects and how we make cookies on rainy Saturdays. I like our life." Tears pricked at my eyes. "I like our life too, sweetheart." As we pulled into our apartment complex, my phone rang, Marcus's number flashing on the screen. The district must have contacted him already. I took a deep breath and silenced the call. That conversation could wait until Lily wasn't present. Inside our apartment, I helped Lily with her homework, made her favorite mac and cheese for dinner, and tried to maintain a sense of normalcy. Only after she was asleep did I listen to the 3 voicemails Marcus had left. The first was angry. "What the hell, Elena? Calling the school district? Catherine could lose her job over this." The second, left an hour later, was more controlled but threatening. "You're overreacting as usual. We were just trying to make sure Lily's needs were being met. If you push this, I'll have no choice but to petition for full custody." The third, from just 30 minutes ago, was quieter. "Call me back, Elena. We need to talk about this like adults. For Lily's sake." I deleted all 3 without responding. Tonight wasn't for Marcus or Catherine or their manipulation. Tonight was for gathering my strength for the battle ahead, a battle I was increasingly confident I could win. As I checked on Lily one last time before bed, watching the gentle rise and fall of her chest as she slept peacefully, I made a silent promise. No one would ever make my daughter keep secrets again. No one would make her feel caught in the middle. And no one, not even her father, would use her as a pawn in their games. Tomorrow would bring confrontation and difficult truths. But tonight, in our small but loving home, we were safe. And that was enough. The next morning dawned with a clarity I hadn't felt in months. Sunlight streamed through our kitchen window, catching dust motes that danced in the golden beams. I stood at the counter, measuring coffee grounds with precise movements, allowing the familiar ritual to center me for what lay ahead. My phone vibrated against the countertop. Another message from Marcus. I'd received 6 more overnight, their tone evolving from angry to conciliatory to almost pleading. I hadn't responded to any of them. Today wasn't about appeasing Marcus or reacting to his manipulation. Today was about protecting Lily and establishing boundaries that should have been in place long ago. "Mom?" Lily appeared in the doorway, still in her unicorn pajamas, hair tousled from sleep. "Is Dad coming over today?" I set down the coffee. Filter. "Why do you ask that, sweetheart?" "I had a dream that he was here, arguing with you." She climbed onto a kitchen stool, chin resting on her hands. He was really mad. I walked over and smoothed her hair. "Your dad and I do need to talk, but not here. Ms. Winters from CPS is coming back this afternoon, and then I'm meeting your dad afterward while you stay with Aunt Tara." Lily's brow furrowed. "Is Ms. Preston in trouble? Maddie's mom works in the office, and she told Maddie that Ms. Preston isn't coming back to our class." "That's between Ms. Preston and the school," I said carefully. "But yes, what she did, teaching you while being married to your dad without telling anyone, that wasn't allowed." "She asked me to call her mom once," Lily said suddenly. "When I was at Dad's house, I told her I already have a mom. She got really quiet after that." My heart squeezed painfully, but I kept my expression neutral. "You handled that perfectly, Lily. You're allowed to decide what you call people in your life." Lily nodded, then slid off the stool. "Can I have cinnamon toast crunch today, since it's Friday?" "Sure thing," I said, grateful for the shift to normalcy. "And how about we walk to school today? It's beautiful out." Our walk to school was one of those perfect moments that burn themselves into memory. Lily skipping ahead, pointing out cats and windows and interesting pebbles, her backpack bouncing slightly with each step. I tried to stay present in it, knowing that the calm wouldn't last. At the school entrance, several parents glanced our way, then quickly looked away. Word had clearly spread. I knelt down to hug Lily goodbye. "Have a great day, sweetheart. Remember, Aunt Tara is picking you up after school." "Because you're meeting with Dad," she confirmed. "That's right. But I'll see you for dinner, and maybe we can have a movie night." Her face brightened. "With popcorn and M&Ms mixed together? Is there any other way?" I smiled, watching as she joined the stream of children entering the building. As I turned to leave, I noticed a woman watching me. Petite, with dark curly hair and kind eyes, I approached hesitantly. "Elena Rodriguez? I'm Diane Fujimoto, Maddie's mom. I work in the front office." She glanced around, then lowered her voice. "I just wanted to say, we all think what that teacher did was wrong. The other parents, I mean. We're behind you." I blinked in surprise. "Thank you. That means a lot." She squeezed my arm, gently. "My sister went through something similar during her divorce. It's awful when people use children as pawns." She pressed a small piece of paper into my hand. "That's my number. If you need anything, a last-minute pickup for Lily, someone to take notes at a meeting, or just coffee and a sympathetic ear, please call." As she walked away, I unfolded the paper. Written beneath her number was a short message. "Moms. Support moms. You're not alone." I tucked the note into my pocket, an unexpected warmth spreading through my chest. Perhaps I'd been so focused on the battle that I'd missed potential allies all around me. Back at home, I prepared for Ms. Winters' follow-up visit, organizing the additional documentation I'd gathered. The district's preliminary report, Lily's recordings, screenshots of text messages from Marcus about school selection, everything that painted a clear picture of the deliberate deception that had occurred. Ms. Winters arrived promptly at 1 p.m., her expression more open than during her initial visit. "Ms. Rodriguez," she greeted me, setting her briefcase on our coffee table. "Thank you for making time today. I have some updates on the investigation that I wanted to share with you, in person." I offered her tea, which she accepted gratefully, and we settled into the living room. The tension of her previous visit was notably absent. "First," she began, "I want to apologize on behalf of the department. Our initial investigation was based on a report that we now know was filed under false pretenses. We should have identified the connection between Ms. Preston and your ex-husband before proceeding with a home visit. You couldn't have known," I said. "They deliberately concealed their relationship." She nodded. "Nevertheless, we're implementing new verification protocols to prevent similar situations in the future." She opened her briefcase. "I've officially recommended that the case be closed with a finding of unsubstantiated. There is no evidence of neglect or unsafe conditions in your home." Relief washed over me, even though I'd expected this outcome. Having it official made a difference. "Additionally," she continued, "I've filed a separate report regarding the circumstances of the initial complaint. Using professional positions to manipulate custody situations falls under emotional abuse statutes in some cases. We're still determining if this rises to that level, but it's being taken very seriously." What does that mean for Lily? It means we're now focused on protecting her from the manipulation she's experienced. The school district has already taken action regarding Ms. Preston's employment. They've also implemented a safety plan to ensure Lily isn't questioned inappropriately by staff. Ms. Winters hesitated, then added, "I should inform you that your ex-husband contacted our office yesterday, attempting to file a counter-complaint." My stomach dropped. "On what grounds?" "He alleged that you coached Lily to record conversations and make false statements about Ms. Preston." She shook her head slightly. "The complaint wasn't accepted for investigation. The recordings were clearly made before you were aware of Ms. Preston's identity, and Lily confirmed to both myself and the school counselor that she decided to record the conversations on her own after a lesson about unsafe secrets." I exhaled. Slowly. Marcus has always been good at twisting narratives. "That's become apparent," Ms. Winters agreed. "Which brings me to my final point. Given the circumstances, we're recommending that you consult with a family law attorney about modifying your custody agreement to include provisions against this type of behavior in the future." "I've already spoken with someone," I assured her. "We're working on it." After Ms. Winters left, I changed into the outfit I'd carefully selected for my meeting with Marcus. A simple navy dress that was professional without being showy, paired with low heels and minimal jewelry. Nothing that could be criticized. Nothing that could be weaponized against me. The Family Mediation Center was housed in a converted Victorian home near downtown. Its interior transformed into comfortable meeting rooms designed to reduce the tension of difficult conversations. I arrived 15 minutes early, using the time to collect my thoughts and review the notes I'd prepared with Tara. Marcus arrived exactly on time, of course. He'd always prided himself on his punctuality. He wore his standard power outfit, charcoal suit, blue tie, polished shoes that probably cost more than my monthly rent. His expression was carefully neutral, but I knew him well enough to recognize the tension in his jaw, the slight narrowing of his eyes as he spotted me in the waiting area. "Elena," he said with a curt nod. "Marcus," I replied, keeping my voice level. "Thank you for agreeing to meet here." He glanced around the mediation center with barely disguised disdain. "I would have preferred to discuss this privately." "I think we're beyond that point, don't you?" Before he could respond, the mediator appeared. A woman in her 50s with silver-streaked black hair and an air of calm authority. "Mr. Rodriguez, Ms. Rodriguez, I'm Gloria Mendez. Please follow me." I kept my maiden name after the divorce, I corrected gently. It's Vasquez now. Gloria nodded. My apologies, Ms. Vasquez. Marcus's mouth tightened at the correction, a small tell that I might have missed in the past, but now registered clearly. He didn't like anything that signaled my independence. The mediation room was simply furnished, a round table, comfortable, chairs, a small side table with water and tissues. No power position at the head of the table, no intimidating legal trappings. Just a neutral space for difficult conversations. Once we were seated, Gloria explained the process. My role today is not to judge or decide who's right or wrong, but to facilitate a productive conversation. You both care deeply about Lily, and that common ground is where we'll start. Marcus shifted impatiently. This entire situation has been blown out of proportion. My wife happens to be a teacher at Lily's school. It's hardly the conspiracy Elena is making it out to be. I remained silent, waiting. One of Marcus's favorite tactics had always been to state his version of reality, so confidently that it became difficult to challenge. Gloria turned to me. Ms. Vasquez, would you like to share your perspective? I took a deep breath. My concern isn't simply that Catherine is Lily's teacher. It's that this was deliberately concealed from both me and the school administration. It's that Catherine used her position to question Lily inappropriately about our home life, then filed a CPS report without disclosing her relationship to Lily. She was concerned, Marcus interrupted. As Lily's teacher, she had a mandatory reporting obligation if she suspected neglect. As Lily's stepmother, she had an obligation to recuse herself from teaching Lily in the first place, I countered. And as her teacher, she had an obligation to disclose the conflict of interest when filing the report. Gloria held up a hand. Let's back up. Mr. Rodriguez, were you aware that your wife was Lily's teacher when the school year began? Marcus hesitated, a barely perceptible pause that spoke volumes. Yes, I was aware. Catherine kept her maiden name professionally, which is not unusual for educators who marry mid-career. And did you disclose this relationship to the school? Administration? Another pause. I assumed Catherine had handled those details. And you, Ms. Vasquez, when did you become aware of this relationship? 2 days ago, when the CPS investigator mentioned it during a follow-up visit. Gloria made a note. And your reaction? Shock, initially, then concern about the months of questioning Lily had mentioned. And finally, anger that my daughter had been put in such an inappropriate position. Marcus leaned forward. This is ridiculous. Catherine is an excellent teacher who cares about Lily. Yes, perhaps we should have been more transparent about the relationship, but Elena is turning this into something sinister when it was an oversight at worst. I pulled out my phone. An oversight doesn't explain this, Marcus. I played one of Lily's recordings, Catherine's voice clear as she questioned Lily about our home life, suggesting she'd be better off living with Marcus full-time. The color drained from Marcus's face as the recording played. When it ended, the room was silent for several long moments. That is my wife's voice, he finally admitted. But I had no knowledge of these conversations. There are 7 more recordings like this one, I said quietly. Lily made them on her own after a school presentation about unsafe secrets. She knew something wasn't right. Gloria's expression remained neutral, but her voice carried new weight. Mr. Rodriguez, were you planning to seek a custody modification? Marcus looked away. We had discussed the possibility. Lily's getting older. She needs stability, structure. And you believed building a case through Catherine's position as Lily's teacher was an appropriate way to pursue that? Gloria asked. I never instructed Catherine to gather information inappropriately, Marcus insisted. If she overstepped, that was her decision. I couldn't help it. I laughed, a short, incredulous sound. That's your defense? Throwing your wife under the bus? Marcus glared at me. Don't pretend you're perfect, Elena. Your apartment is tiny. You work irregular hours. Lily has mentioned being hungry at school. Because she gave her lunch money. To a friend, I said. Something you'd know if you'd asked me directly instead of having your wife interrogate our daughter. Gloria intervened. Let's refocus. The school district has already taken action regarding Ms. Preston's employment. CPS has closed their investigation into Ms. Vasquez's home. What we need to discuss now is how to move forward in a way that protects Lily. For the next hour, we navigated difficult territory, the breach of trust, the impact on Lily, and the necessary changes to our co-parenting relationship. Marcus alternated between defensiveness and grudging acknowledgement of the situation's severity. I maintained my composure, focusing on solutions rather than recriminations. By the end, we had reached several agreements. Lily would continue therapy, with a neutral counselor to process what had happened. Marcus would ensure Catherine had no contact with Lily until approved by the therapist. Most importantly, we would revise our custody agreement to include explicit provisions against using professional relationships to gather information about the other parent's home. As the session concluded, Gloria addressed us both. Co-parenting. After divorce is challenging under the best circumstances. What's happened here has damaged trust that will take time to rebuild. But I see two parents who, despite their differences, both love their daughter. Focus on that common ground. Outside the mediation center, Marcus stopped me in the parking lot. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the pavement, highlighting the lines of strain around his eyes. Elena, he said, his voice quieter than it had been inside. I never intended for things to go this far. Didn't you? I met his gaze steadily. You've always needed to be in control, Marcus. Of me, of our marriage, now of Lily. That's not fair. Neither was any of this. I adjusted my purse strap. Here's what I want you to understand. I'm not the same person you left 2 years ago. I don't crumble anymore. I don't doubt myself. And I will never, never allow Lily to be caught in the middle of adult games again. He studied me, as if seeing something new. You've changed. I had to. I turned toward my car, then paused. One more thing. Tell Catherine that Lily chooses what to call her. Not you, not Catherine. Lily. As I drove to Tara's house to pick up Lily, the weight that had been pressing on my chest for days began to lift. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. Trust had been broken, relationships damaged. But for the first time since that parent-teacher conference, I felt like I was standing on solid ground. Tara's house was filled with the scent of chocolate chip, cookies when I arrived. Lily and Tara's daughter Emma were sprawled on the living room floor, surrounded by colored pencils and drawing paper. Mom! Lily scrambled up when she saw me. Look what we made! She held up a colorful drawing of what appeared to be a superhero in a flowing cape. It's you! I crouched down to examine the artwork. The superhero had my dark curly hair and wore a cape emblazoned with Supermom across the back. In one hand, she held a briefcase. In the other, a shield shaped like a heart. Emma said your job is protecting me, like a superhero, Lily explained. So we made you one. I hugged her tightly, emotion welling up unexpectedly. It's perfect, sweetheart. The best drawing ever. Tara approached with a knowing smile. How did it go? Better than expected, I said softly. We have a lot to work through, but the groundwork is laid. She nodded approvingly. I knew you'd handle it. You're stronger than you give yourself credit for. On the drive home, Lily chatted about her afternoon with Emma, the cookies they'd baked, the games they'd played. Normal, happy child things that had nothing to do with teachers or step-parents or custody battles. I listened gratefully, savoring the sound of her unburdened voice. Mom? She asked as we neared our apartment. Is everything going to be okay now? I glanced at her in the rearview mirror. Yes, sweetheart. Not perfect, maybe, but okay. And sometimes okay is enough to build on. She seemed to consider this. Like when we're making a Lego castle and we don't have all the right pieces, but we figure out how to make it work anyway? Exactly like that, I smiled. Life doesn't always give us the perfect pieces, but we can still build something beautiful. That evening, true to my promise, we had movie night, complete with popcorn and M&Ms mixed together. As Lily laughed at the animated characters on screen, curled against my side in our small but comfortable living room, I reflected on how quickly life can change. Just days ago, I'd felt powerless, watched, judged. Now I felt not victorious, exactly, but vindicated, stronger. Later, after Lily was asleep, I sat at our kitchen table with my laptop, drafting an email to Principal Mendez. The district had requested a statement about my preferences regarding Lily's classroom placement for the remainder of the year. As I typed, I realized I was no longer writing from a place of defense or reaction. I was advocating, clearly, confidently, for my daughter's needs. My phone buzzed with a text from Diane, Maddie's mom. Thinking of you. The moms are organizing a playground meetup this weekend if you and Lily want to join. Another unexpected gift. Community where I'd least expected to find it. I texted back my thanks and acceptance, then returned to my email. The words flowed. Easily now, powered by a clarity I hadn't felt in years. This was the person I was meant to be. Not defined by Marcus's leaving, not diminished by Catherine's manipulation, but strengthened by the challenge of standing firm in my own truth. As I finished the email and prepared for bed, I paused at Lily's doorway, watching her peaceful sleep. The superhero drawing was now taped to her wall, its bright colors visible even in the dim nightlight glow. Supermom, I whispered to myself, a small smile playing at my lips. Not because I believed I was perfect or extraordinary, but because I'd finally recognized my own power, the quiet strength that had been there all along, waiting for me to claim it. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Marcus and Catherine would adjust their tactics. The custody agreement revisions would need to be finalized. Lily would need continued support to process what had happened. But tonight, in our small apartment, filled with love and hard-won peace, I allowed myself to feel something I hadn't experienced in too long. Pride. Not just in surviving, but in finding my voice, in standing firm, in showing Lily what it meant to face injustice with dignity and resolve. Some battles aren't about winning or losing. They're about discovering who you truly are in the fight. And sometimes, the person you discover is stronger, wiser, and more courageous than you ever imagined you could be. 2 months later, I stood in our apartment hallway, surrounded by cardboard boxes labeled in my neat handwriting. Kitchen, Lily's books, winter clothes. The morning light filtered through our curtains, casting golden patterns across the worn hardwood floors I'd grown to love. I ran my fingers along the doorframe where Lily's height measurements climbed like a ladder, each pencil mark a testament to time passing, to growth that couldn't be contained. Mom, I found Mr. Whiskers. Lily's voice called from her bedroom, followed by the triumphant appearance of her holding aloft a one-eared stuffed cat that had been her constant companion since toddlerhood. He was hiding under my dresser. I smiled, kneeling to help her, tuck the well-loved toy into her backpack. Can't leave him behind, can we? He's family. Do you think he'll like the new place? She asked, her expression suddenly serious. I think he'll love it, I assured her. Remember the big window in your new room? Perfect for cat naps in the sunshine. Her face brightened. And the park is just across the street. I can see the swings from my window. That's right. I zipped her backpack closed. Are you ready for one last check of your room? The movers will be here in an hour. As Lily darted back to her bedroom, I returned to the living room, surveying the stacks of boxes that contained our life. Not everything was coming with us. Some furniture had been sold, some items donated, others simply left behind. Moving wasn't just about transporting possessions. It was about choosing what deserved to continue the journey with us. The decision to move hadn't been easy. This apartment, despite its modest size and occasional maintenance issues, had been our sanctuary during the hardest days after the divorce. It had witnessed Lily's first lost tooth, my late nights building a freelance career, movie marathons, during thunderstorms, and improvised dance parties in the kitchen. It had sheltered us when we needed shelter most, but it had also become associated with more difficult memories. Marcus's dismissive comments about its size, Catherine's manipulation, the CPS investigation that had turned our lives upside down. Some spaces, I had realized, carried too much emotional weight to remain truly comfortable. Our new apartment was only 15 minutes away, still within Lily's school district, but in a different building. A sunny corner unit in a well-maintained complex with a small community garden and families with children Lily's age. It wasn't extravagant, but it was a deliberate choice rather than a necessity born of crisis. The doorbell rang, pulling me from my thoughts. I opened it to find Diane and Maddie, both carrying paper coffee cups and small gift bags. "Moving day survival kit," Diane announced, handing me one of the coffees. "Caffeine for energy, chocolate for morale, and a couple other surprises." "You didn't have to do this," I said, genuinely touched as I accepted the offerings. "Of course." "We did," she replied with a warm smile. "That's what friends do." Friends. The word still surprised me sometimes. In the aftermath of the CPS investigation and Catherine's removal from the school, I'd expected isolation, whispers, sidelong glances from other parents. Instead, I'd found community. Mothers who recognized the injustice of what had happened and rallied around us with playdates, school pickup offers, and the simple gift of belonging. Maddie had already found Lily, their excited voices drifting from the bedroom as they discussed the merits of the new apartment's location. Diane surveyed the boxes with an experienced eye. "Need help with last-minute packing?" "I've moved 4 times in 7 years. I'm practically a professional." I laughed. "I think we're mostly set, but I wouldn't say no to help with the kitchen stuff. I always leave it for last, and it's always a disaster." As we wrapped mugs in newspaper and sorted which utensils would travel in the essentials box, Diane filled me in on the latest school news. The new 4th-grade teacher, Ms. Chen, had organized a science fair for the spring. The PTA was fundraising for a playground upgrade. Normal, everyday school matters that had nothing to do with custody battles or hidden agendas. "How are things?" "With the ex?" Diane asked quietly, once the girls were out of earshot. I carefully placed a wrapped plate in the box before answering. "Better than expected, actually. The revised custody agreement has been helpful. Clear boundaries, specific communication protocols, and I think the mediation process was a wake-up call for him." "And the wife?" "Catherine's teaching at a private school in Beaverton now. She and I don't interact directly. That's part of the agreement until Lily's therapist recommends." "Otherwise?" I sealed the box with packing tape. "Honestly, I'm just relieved that chapter is closed." Diane nodded thoughtfully. "You know what amazes me? How you've handled all this without becoming bitter. I'm not sure I could have been so measured. I hadn't thought of it that way before." "I couldn't afford bitterness," I said finally. "Not with Lily watching, learning how to navigate conflict from my example. Besides, bitterness takes too much energy, and I needed mine for rebuilding." The moving truck arrived promptly at 10, 2 cheerful men who worked with efficient precision. Diane and Maddie stayed to help, turning what could have been a stressful morning into something almost festive. By early afternoon, our old apartment was empty, except for the echoes of our footsteps and the memories we were leaving behind. Lily stood in the middle of her empty bedroom, turning in a slow circle. "It looks sad now," she observed. I put my arm around her shoulders. "Empty doesn't mean sad, sweetheart. It means ready for someone new to fill it with their own stories. Like when you finish a good book and pass it to a friend? Exactly like that." I squeezed her shoulder. "Ready to say goodbye?" She nodded, then suddenly darted to the wall where her height measurements were marked. "Wait, can we take a picture? So we remember how tall I was here?" I pulled out my phone, capturing not just the pencil marks, but Lily standing beside them, her head now well above the highest line. Growth made visible, not just in inches, but in the confidence of her stance, the clarity in her eyes that had returned over these past months of therapy and healing. We followed the moving truck to our new apartment, where Tara and Emma were waiting to help unpack. The property manager had left a small welcome basket, fresh flowers, local coffee, a gift card to the neighborhood ice cream shop. Another unexpected kindness in a season that had been full of them. "This place has great energy," Tara declared as she helped me arrange furniture in the living room. "Much better feng shui than the old apartment." "Is that your professional legal opinion?" I teased. "Absolutely. It'll hold up in court." By evening, we'd made remarkable progress. Beds were assembled, the kitchen was functional, and most of Lily's belongings were unpacked and organized. Pizza was ordered, eaten, on a picnic blanket in the middle of the living room since our dining table was still in pieces. The adults sipped wine from plastic cups while the girls giggled over inside jokes and made plans for exploring the neighborhood playground tomorrow. After everyone had gone and Lily was tucked into her new bed, Mr. Whiskers faithfully at her side, I stood on our small balcony, looking out at the unfamiliar pattern of lights in this new corner of the city. Change was always a mixture of excitement and trepidation, of possibilities and uncertainties. But for the first time in a long while, the possibilities felt like they outweighed the uncertainties. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Lily called to say goodnight. She sounds happy about the new place. Let me know if you need anything for the move." No passive-aggressive undertones, no subtle digs about money or stability. Just a simple acknowledgement and offer of support. It was progress. Not perfection, but progress. The next morning brought the practical challenges of any move. Missing items, stubborn furniture pieces that refused to fit where I'd planned, the mysterious disappearance of all our phone chargers. But it also brought sunshine streaming through. Uncovered windows and the discovery of a family of chickadees nesting in the tree outside Lily's room, small delights that made the new space begin to feel like ours. While Lily was occupied with arranging her bookshelf, a task she approached with the seriousness of a museum curator, I unpacked the box labeled Elena Personal. It contained items I'd been collecting over the past months, tangible, reminders of the journey we'd been on. The initial CPS report, now stamped unsubstantiated in bold red letters. A copy of our revised custody agreement, with its clear protections against the kinds of manipulation Catherine had attempted. Lily's superhero drawing of Supermom, now framed for my home office wall. A card from Diane and several other schools. Mothers, signed with messages of support and solidarity. And at the bottom of the box, something I'd almost forgotten. A small notebook where I'd started journaling during the darkest days of the investigation. I opened it, reading the words I'd written 2 months ago. "I don't know how this ends. I'm scared for Lily, scared of losing her, scared that Marcus and Catherine will convince everyone that I'm the unstable one, the unfit one. But I know the truth. I know I'm a good mother. I know our home is filled with love. I have to hold on to that when everything else feels like it's slipping away." I traced my fingers over the handwriting, recognizing the fear that had pulsed through every word. That version of me had been terrified but determined, uncertain but resolute. "Ms. Vasquez," she greeted me warmly. "I hope this isn't an intrusion. I was in the neighborhood for another case and wanted to drop this off." She offered the plant, a cheerful little succulent in a ceramic pot. a housewarming gift. Your new address was in our system from the case closure paperwork. I invited her in, surprised but touched by the gesture. As I gave her a quick tour of our new apartment, she nodded approvingly. "This is lovely," she said. "A fresh start can be so healing." It wasn't running away, I felt compelled to clarify. We didn't leave because of what happened. She smiled understandingly. "Of course not. You left because you were ready for the next chapter. There's a world of difference." After showing her Lily's room, Lily herself was at the playground with our new neighbors. We settled in the kitchen where I offered coffee. "I won't stay long," Ms. Winters said, "but I wanted to tell you something that I couldn't share officially. During the investigation." I sat across from her, curious. In my 15 years with CPS, I've seen too many cases where custody becomes a weapon. What you did, maintaining your composure, gathering evidence methodically, focusing on Lily's well-being above all else, that's unfortunately rare. She wrapped her hands around her coffee mug. You could have escalated things, publicly, shamed your ex-husband and his wife, used the situation to try to limit his access to Lily. Many parents would have. That wouldn't have helped Lily, I said simply. Exactly. And that's what impressed me most. Your decisions weren't driven by anger or retribution, but by what would ultimately create the most stable environment for your daughter. She leaned forward slightly. That kind of wisdom is what makes a truly exceptional parent. Her words settled around me like a warm blanket. Coming from someone who had initially entered our lives as an evaluator, a potential threat, they carried special weight. "Thank you," I said, finding my voice slightly unsteady. "That means more than you know." After Ms. Winters left, I placed the succulent on our kitchen windowsill, where the afternoon light caught its glossy leaves. Another unexpected gift, another reminder that support often comes from unanticipated sources. The next few days fell into the rhythm of new routines, learning the most efficient morning route to Lily's school from our new location, discovering which local grocery store had the best produce, meeting neighbors who stopped by to introduce themselves. Small, ordinary moments that gradually transformed unfamiliar space into home. 1 week after our move, I received an email from Dr. Harmon at the school district, requesting a meeting. My first instinct was concern. Had there been some development? With Catherine? Was there an issue with Lily's classroom placement? But the email specified that this was a positive follow-up, nothing requiring immediate attention. We met at a cafe near the district offices, the kind of place with mismatched furniture and local art on the walls. Dr. Harmon greeted me with a handshake and immediately put my lingering concerns to rest. "This isn't about any problems," she assured me. "Quite the opposite. The district has been reviewing our policies regarding conflicts of interest and mandatory reporting in light of what happened with Ms. Preston. We've developed new training, materials for teachers and administrators, and we'd like your input before we finalize them." I was momentarily speechless. My input? I'm not an educator or a policy expert. No, but you have first-hand experience with the consequences of these policies being insufficient or improperly applied. Your perspective would be invaluable. She showed me the draft materials, comprehensive guidelines for identifying and managing potential conflicts of interest, clearer protocols for mandatory reporting, specific language addressing personal relationships with students' families. It was thorough, thoughtful work. "This is impressive," I said, genuinely moved that something constructive was emerging from our difficult experience. "I'd be happy to review it and offer feedback." Dr. Harmon smiled. "We're also establishing a parent advisory committee to provide ongoing input on these and other policies. If you're interested, we'd love to have you participate." The offer caught me by surprise. 2 months ago, I'd been under investigation, my parenting scrutinized and questioned. Now I was being invited to help shape district policy, to transform my painful experience into protection for other families. "I'd like that," I said, finding that I truly meant it. Very much. As we discussed the details, I realized how far I'd come from the woman who had sat frozen in that parent-teacher conference, blindsided by accusations and uncertainties. That version of me had felt powerless in the face of systems and authorities that seemed aligned against her. This version, the one sitting across from Dr. Harmon as a valued contributor, understood her own worth, her own voice. That evening, as Lily and I prepared dinner in our new kitchen, she carefully tearing lettuce for salad while I stirred pasta sauce, I shared a simplified version of my meeting with Dr. Harmon. "So you're going to help make rules for the school?" Lily asked, impressed. "Sort of. I'm going to help make sure that what happened with Ms. Preston doesn't happen to other kids and parents." She nodded thoughtfully, her hand still working with the lettuce. "That's good. Like when something bad happens, but then you make something good come from it." Exactly like that. She was quiet for a moment, then looked up with unexpected solemnity. "I'm proud of you, Mom." My heart swelled at those simple words. "Thank you, sweetheart. I'm proud of you too. So proud of how brave and smart you've been through all of this." "Ms. Chen says sometimes the hardest things make us stronger," she offered. "Like how plants need rain to grow, not just sunshine." I smiled at the wisdom in her words. "Ms. Chen sounds very smart." "She is," Lily agreed, brightening. "And she doesn't ask weird questions about our house or make me feel bad when I talk about you." The simple standard, a teacher who didn't manipulate or undermine, highlighted how abnormal Catherine's behavior had been. But it also emphasized how resilient Lily was, how capable she was of recognizing healthy relationships after experiencing unhealthy ones. Later that night, after Lily was asleep, I sat on our new balcony with a cup of tea, looking out at the city lights. My phone buzzed with a text from Tara. "Committee meeting still on for Saturday?" Emma's excited for the playdate with Lily. The committee she referred to wasn't the district's advisory group, but something more personal. A small gathering of mothers who had begun meeting monthly to support each other through various parenting challenges. Some were navigating divorces, others dealing with children's health issues or educational concerns. What had started as casual coffee between Diane and me had grown into a circle of women who shared resources, advice, and the simple gift of being heard. I texted back my confirmation, grateful once again for the community that had emerged from what had initially seemed like isolation. There was a lesson there, one I was still learning. That vulnerability, when shared with the right people, doesn't make you weaker. It connects you to others who understand, who can help carry the burden, who can celebrate when the weight finally lifts. My gaze drifted to the small succulent on the windowsill, its form silhouetted against the night sky. Resilient little plant, designed to thrive in harsh conditions, to store what it needs within itself for the difficult seasons. I'd been learning to do the same, to preserve my strength, to draw on inner resources, to find nourishment even in challenging circumstances. But unlike the succulent, I didn't have to do it alone. That was perhaps the greatest revelation of these past months. That independence and community weren't opposing forces, but complementary strengths. I could stand firmly in my own truth while also accepting support from others who recognized that truth. As I finished my tea and prepared for bed, I paused at Lily's doorway, watching her peaceful sleep. The moonlight from her new window cast gentle patterns across her face, highlighting the curve of her cheek, the dark sweep of her eyelashes against her skin. My brave, perceptive daughter, who had recognized something was wrong and found her own way to document it. Who had weathered uncertainty with remarkable grace. Who was, even now, teaching me about resilience and growth. "Like plants needing rain," I whispered, echoing her words from earlier. Some storms arrive without warning, upending everything we thought was secure. They test our foundations, reveal our vulnerabilities, force us to adapt or break. But in their aftermath, if we're fortunate, we discover new strength, unexpected allies, deeper roots than we knew we had. The teacher who had called CPS on me had been my ex-husband's new wife. The investigation had uncovered manipulation and deceit, but it had also uncovered courage. In Lily, in myself, in the community that rallied around us when we needed it most. Not every storm brings destruction. Some bring transformation instead. And in that transformation, painful as it might be, we sometimes find our truest selves, standing firm, even as the winds finally calm, ready to embrace whatever growth the clearing skies might bring. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.